Some More Outdoor, Episode 10.
Welcome to Some More Outdoor, where we speak with authors, entrepreneurs, and business owners about how the outdoors has affected their life and their projects. This show is to remind you of the healing properties of the outdoors. So, are you ready to learn what the nature effect can do for your life? Well, here's your host, Brett Trout.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Some More Outdoor. I'm your host and personal outdoor advocate, Brett Trout. And this is the show dedicated to reminding you to get out and experience the nature effect. My goal is to help you reestablish your connection with nature so that you can start living with that childlike wonder again. So I'm so excited to be here and talk about something that I'm passionate other than the outdoors, and it's about stress, and how we just don't get the sleep that we needed to. In last episode, on the first topic-based episode that I've produced, it was titled, How to Deal with Stress at Work and Actually Get a Good Night's Sleep. That's episode number 7. I encourage you to head on over to smoreoutdoor.com and check it out because I wrote an in-depth article after the show. And, I was pretty proud of it. And I hope that you guys get a lot of value from that show and from those notes. But in this episode, I wanted to dive a little bit further in what Richard Swenson calls in his book Margin the stress syndromes, or the overload syndromes. And he says that there's 17 causes of stress. Last week, I only talked about 15, so I added the other 2 this week because I also think that they're important for you guys to hear about. But there's 17, in this episode, there's 17 causes of stress on your mental and emotional health. And so I needed to dive in to find some more information about the emotional and mental symptoms of stress. And so I found a few articles online. One of them's by helpguide.org, and another one is by psychcentral.com. So as far as the emotional symptoms go, think about these and see if you have them. Are you moody? Stress causes moodiness. Are you irritable and have a short temper? Have you lost your sense of humor? Do you get frustrated easily? Are you jumpy or are you overly excited a lot of times? Are you just feeling overworked? Do you feel a sense of helplessness sometimes? Do you experience apathy, which is, apathy means the lack of interest or enthusiasm or concern about something? Are you agitated and have an inability to relax? Do you just flat out feel overwhelmed? Maybe you feel a sense of loneliness and isolation. And some of you may even have depression or just a general feeling of unhappiness. So does that sound like you? What about the mental symptoms? Stress causes a lot of mental symptoms. You have memory problems, inability to concentrate, lack of focus. Maybe you have poor judgment. Some of you may even see only the negative side of things. Are you always anxious or have racing thoughts? Are you constantly worried? Are you just mentally slow? Not in a bad way, but do you have mental slowness going on? Are you confused? Do you have generally negative thoughts and attitudes? Man, are you forgetful? I know I am. As I get older, especially, I get more forgetful. Do you have difficulty thinking in a logical sequence? Some of you have a hard time with problem solving. So those are all symptoms of your mental health and problems that we face in life today. And they're usually caused by the effects of stress. So let me dive into the 17 causes. He talks about 17. Some of them I actually combine together because they mean roughly the same thing. So the first group is activity, hurry, and commitment stress. As a society, we're busy. If you go outside and you look around, and especially around 5 o'clock, there's so many different people on the road. We're constantly on the go. We live nonstop lives. And we've also committed to so much. We've taken on so much in our life that we have no breathing room. Maybe you deal with change stress, where things are constantly changing around you, or you have difficulty with change. I definitely had difficulty with change because I'm me. And I know that everybody, or most people, I'm adaptable by nature, but most people have a difficult time changing. And especially, we never want to be told to change something about ourselves, but we will change if it's our decision. If there's change in the workplace, man, that has huge impact on us because maybe we've been so consistent for so long, and then all of a sudden you get a new manager or somebody comes in and they want to change everything that you're so used to, and you have a difficult time dealing with that change, and it leads to stress. The next group is choice and decision stress. Man, are you just as overwhelmed with the amount of choices that you have in your life? When you go shopping, when you go to see a movie, now there used to be, I know in the town that I grew up in, and there still is, there's only one movie that plays during the week, but then you go into some of these bigger towns and they have as much as 21 different screens, and all these movies are awesome, and you just have a tough time figuring out which one that you want to go see. Having all these choices, it makes it difficult for us to decide. I always laugh at my wife and I, because sometimes when we're actually really hungry and we've been out all day, we have a really tough time figuring out what we want to go eat because there's so many different choices for food, and we're irritated because we're starving, we're hungry, and it just leads to complications. So do you have decision stress and choice stress in your life? What about the next set, which is debt and possession stress? I combine these because I think a lot of us just buy so much stuff, which puts us into debt. Now, I don't have debt anymore, but I still have a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's so overwhelming to me. Do you have credit card debt? Do you have car loan debt? You've accumulated all this stuff that now your garage is so full you can't even get your car in there. And some of you have a completely full garage, yet you have storage units as well that you're paying on a monthly basis. How much stuff do we need? How much stuff can we get by on? So debt and possession stress you might have. What about expectation stress? How are you expected to live? Are you expected to live a certain way? Are you expected to act a certain way around the people at work? Or how do you feel that you're expected to live? We have expectations at work and home. How do you deal with those? So that's expectation stress. What about fatigue stress? As a society, we're always tired. We're always just in a lethargic state. Now, when you get older, you get more tired, of course. But when you're young, you just have so much energy. And that's what I want the nature effect to bring in your life, like I said at the beginning of the show, is to live with that childlike wonder. Because when you're a kid, you took naps, you got a good night's sleep, there wasn't a lot of stress. So how many of you wake up groggy in the morning? Maybe you grab a cup of coffee in the morning or even in the late afternoon. Or how many of you drink energy drinks on a consistent basis? One of my New Year's resolutions was not to drink energy drinks anymore because I was essentially addicted to them because I needed that pick-me-up in the afternoon. I didn't feel like drinking, a fat-laden coffee or something with a lot of sugar, so I would get no sugar energy drinks. But still, they were so bad for me. So I'm glad that I've stopped that. I'm excited because it's just something that I didn't need in my life. Some of you might have information, media, and technology stress, and you're dealing with that. How many blogs do you read? How many books do you read? Now, it's awesome to research and to learn and to grow. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do any one of those. That's just a part of living. How many people sit in front of the TV every night when they come home just to relax and unplug from their stressful day at work? Man, there's so many different choices that we have. Even the internet now. You can go online and just look at all these different things online, and it's amazing to me how distracted that I personally get going down these different holes. And all this leads back to decision and choice stress. What do you watch? What do you read? And then you're trying to think, well, what information, if you're trying to build a business and learn about marketing and blogging and different things like that, whose information should I follow? So we're constantly online with our smartphones as well, and checking it every time we get a notification. So that in itself, I can go definitely on a whole nother topic about technology, and eventually I will, because I know that I have technology as well in my home, and I call it my electrical paradise, right? Because there's so much electronics around me that, I could just do just about anything. Noise stress. How much noise is in your life? There's so much noise pollution, whether it's from music, whether it's from the TV, whether it's from the city that you live in. And it's constantly there. And when your world's noisy, you just can't think anymore. You can't focus. You can't be creative. I laughed at this one because this stress is really interesting to me. People stress. Do people stress you out? Social relationships are great, but when you're in overcrowded places, how long can you deal with it? Maybe for a while, but eventually it just becomes overwhelming. It becomes emotionally draining. I laughed at this in the beginning, but then I started thinking about a long time ago, well, even in my recent job, but one when I worked in my pawn shop with my dad. The people that come into a pawn shop are essentially down and out, and they've got so much going on and so much hurt in their life, and there's so much that they needed from me. Not only did they need money, but they wanted to share their livelihood. They wanted to talk. They just needed me. They needed an ear to be there. But I was so emotionally drained by the end of the week that I had to head outdoors, because I eventually learned that by getting outdoors, it restored my emotional health. What about traffic stress? How many of you are listening to this in your car on your way to work, in traffic? Did you know that the word travel comes from the word travail, which means a painful and laborious effort? Painful. So traveling is a painful, or travail is a painful and laborious effort. And speaking of work, the last one we're going to go through is work stress. Now, yes, we're supposed to work and not be sluggards. We're supposed to provide for our family and take care of our basic necessities. But most Americans wake up unhappy to go to work. Did you wake up this morning and just didn't feel like going in? It's Friday. Maybe you were excited because it's the end of the week for some of you. For others, you might have to work on the weekends. But work demands so much of our time, and it becomes exhausting. And all the other stressors have a huge impact on how we feel about work, how excited we are to go to work. Yet work determines what other stress symptoms that you experience. You can be good in some of those if you were in a job that you were passionate about and that you loved. The other stressors wouldn't have a huge effect on you. If you're in a work environment that's just naturally stressful, it's going to determine the other stressors in your life. It's a vicious cycle. It's like a rat race, just going around in a circle. I think of my hamster when I was little, just running and running and running. He wasn't getting anywhere. So when you think about these stressors, how many of them do you have? Do you have just a few? Do you experience most of them? Maybe you experience all 17 of these stressors. I could say right now I probably experience about half of them, but I'm working towards reducing that stress. And part of my personal therapy is spending as much time outdoors as I can. So now that you can see how stress affects your mental and emotional health, what are you going to do about it? What can you do to change all this? Well, first of all, I'm not a doctor, of course. So some of you may need additional help. But if you're like me, you'd like to try fixing things yourself. You'll go online to YouTube if you have a problem with something in your house. You go online to YouTube because somebody out there has had the same problem and you've tried to fix it. So I encourage you to try and fix it yourself. But like I said, some of you, fixing it yourself might not work. So you need that additional help from a therapist or somebody. First, you need to identify the stressors in your life. So like I said in the last episode, go ahead and write all of them down. You can actually just copy and paste. They'll be over on the website. And list from 1 to 17 the stressors in your life and how much certain ones have an impact. So if, say, for example, work is your greatest stressor, that's going to be number 17. If debt is your least stressor, maybe that's number 1. Whatever least stressor you have, start with number 1 and work your way on the way up to the number 17. So identify the causes of stress. Then start to make a lifestyle change. Now that you've got that list of 17 stressors, start working on the smallest one. I took this from Dave Ramsey, the snowball effect, of course, but I call it the stress snowball. And the reason why I do that is because, like Dave Ramsey says, when you start knocking off the little debts first in your life, you start feeling that success and you can start work up and start getting it, builds into a snowball. And by the time you've got that last debt paid off, that's how it works. So the stress snowball is you start tackling the smallest one first, the one that's going to be the easiest stress to eliminate. When you have that little win, it gets you excited to knock down that other win. Man, I think it's a great idea. Maybe not. I don't know. Depends on what you think. And then my favorite is you need to learn to relax. And what better way to do that than heading outdoors, even if it's only for a 5-minute walk. So I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you with the 30-day Get S'more Outdoor Challenge. And what is the challenge? So for the next 30 days, you're going to get out for what I call 5 minutes of sunshine. Now, it's just a start. Start out with 5 minutes. And I know some of you may live in a place where it's not sunny straight for 30 days. But just getting out for 5 minutes each day over the next 30 days can have a huge impact on how you feel, huge impact on your emotional and mental health. And then once a week, we'll be getting out for a weekly green hour. So what is weekly green hour? Maybe it's sitting outside in your hammock. Maybe it's going to the nearest park and just relaxing with the kids. Maybe it's actually heading to the mountains, which is obviously going to take for longer than an hour. But maybe it's going on a hike someplace in a woodland for an hour. Now, not to mention the drive out there is so relaxing, and it gets you away from sitting in front of the TV. It gets you away from being in front of the computer where your eyes are constantly in and out of focus. When you get outdoors and you're just driving to some place to spend your weekly green hour, your eyes have a chance to relax and to see. And nature just becomes so visually stimulating in itself. Just by driving, you can experience that. So for those of you who want to take the challenge live and come on the show with me, email me at brett@s'moreoutdoor.com, and we'll do an interview to start, and then one after the 30-day challenge to see how you feel and what you'll experience during that time. I can't tell you exactly, but from my own life, it's reduced so many of the stressors, and I feel so much better when I come back. So email me your story and that, yes, you'd like to take the challenge, okay? So that's it for today's episode of S'more Outdoor, and I'm just excited to be here with you to share my love of the outdoors and how it's had an impact in my life and how it can have an impact in yours too. So a few things before I go, head on over to s'moreoutdoor.com to see the recap of today's show and click that subscribe button in iTunes. Man, that'd mean so much for me. You'll when you subscribe, you'll get a notification each time that a new episode comes out. But it also, when you subscribe and leave a rating and review, which would be so cool, it helps to get the show noticed so that others like you and I can learn about how the nature effect can have an impact in their lives, and so that they can become inspired by the stories and topics that I share. So I hope today's show has inspired you to reconnect with nature, start living with childlike wonder again, so you can reduce these stressors in your life for your mental and emotional health. Thank you for tuning in to the show that's changing lives around the world. Until next time, I challenge you to do something this week to get s'more outdoor.